Hey UVic students, my name's Emily. I'm your UVSS Director of Campaigns and Community Relations, and I'm joined here today by Roxanne Helm, who is your MLA candidate. Roxanne, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. And first, I have to begin by saying this is really a pleasure to be interviewed by someone from my alma mater. I graduated from UVic with a Bachelor of Arts in 1983, major in economics. So this is great. Anyway, I'm Roxanne Helme, and I'm the BC Liberal Party candidate in the riding of Oak Bay Gordon Head, which of course is the UVic riding. I'm encouraging all students to get out and vote. Super important that you take an active interest in the democratic process. And of course, this campaign is different from any other, but fortunately, Elections BC has given us a lot of options for voting, either mail-in ballots or a lot of numerous advanced polling dates, and then of course E-Day on the 24th. So get out and vote, everybody.
Great, thank you. So we have some rapid fire questions here. Roxanne, top of your brain, book that changed your life.
Shogun by James Clavell. I was sad when it was over.
Awesome. Do you have a guilty pleasure TV show?
You know, I hardly ever watch TV, so Perry Mason, but no, I don't really. I just don't watch TV.
Awesome. Do you have a go-to coffee shop in Victoria?
My absolute favorite is Hide and Seek on Oak Bay Avenue. It's a few blocks from my house.
Awesome. Okay, so, oh my gosh, a bird just hit my window. That's disturbing. So students overwhelmingly believe that the climate emergency requires an immediate and an effective response from all levels of government. In 90 seconds or less, I'm wondering what specific actions you'll take to ensure that BC meets the required milestones of a 45% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 and net zero emissions by 2050.
What I can say is this, the party platform is emerging. Obviously, this is a snap election. So when it comes to real specifics, that's going to come from the party when the platform is fully out, and it is slowly coming out. But what I can say is this, don't forget that it was the BC Liberal Party under Gordon Campbell that in 1996 introduced the first carbon tax in North America. So we've been leading the way on this file. Don't forget also, the NDP ran against us in that subsequent election on the slogan, "Axe the tax." So it's our file and we're on it, and we're going to move forward for sure on it. So yeah, don't forget that, I guess.
Okay, thank you. And do you have any other specific actions beyond the carbon tax that you're interested in pursuing?
Well, I personally have an obsessive problem with waste of any kind, especially food waste. So that would be a focus of mine. But what I'm looking for is good, sound, strategic governance with measurable outcomes. And that's including the environmental file. And obviously we have some heavy duty targets. We've got an amazing environmental assessment program that has been built up over years under BC Liberal governance. And I want to see that continue. And we always have to do more. We can never really do enough, I guess, is my approach.
Okay. So if elected, students are wondering if you're committed to eliminating all oil, gas, and LNG subsidies in BC.
That's something I obviously, well, I can't really commit to. I can tell you that I want to do whatever I can to push the environmental file. We have to get there before we can be there, but we have to move fast. Like you say, it is an emergency. But I'm not really qualified to, or to say yes or no to that question. I'd love to be able to. I know it's a yes or no question, but I can tell you that committed to strategic governance, and let's get where we have to be.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. So students have also expressed a strong desire to create a more socially just province, and current measures by municipalities to reduce systemic racism in police forces simply haven't solved the problems, and economic inequities in marginalized groups continue to create generational challenges for children, families, and communities. I'm curious what specific changes you think should be made in the Police Act to address systemic racism in policing in BC.
This is something I have a lot of experience in and would love to get into the policy change. I've been on a police board. I have a really significant, expansive understanding of police governance and civilian oversight. And I know that we all know that the way the police can succeed is if they have the support of the community. Right back to Peel's Principles of Policing. Look them up, they're really great to read, and we have to keep them in mind at all times. Specifically, I would like to see the Police Act changed in order to really empower police boards. That's the community voice. And it shouldn't just be a governance approach. I think that police boards have to get into the operations. Example, hiring of leadership in the police force, not just the chief. Currently, the police board only hires the chief. I'd like to see them get down there saying, look, we need more female sergeants, and have an active role. Bring the community voice right into the operational side of policing. So I'd love to rewrite the Police Act. I've got lots of ideas on that.
Okay, yeah, thank you for your comments there. So costs like tuition and housing continue to rise while students' incomes have dropped significantly during the COVID-19 crisis. So I'm wondering how you plan to tackle the rising costs of education for post-secondary students.
I would be, excuse me, I would be in favor of any policy measure that removes barriers to people for post-secondary education, and that's any barrier. So I know there's consideration of potentially free post-secondary education. Some need that, that's a barrier, some don't. So that would be my focus, barriers. I want everyone to have equal, full access to post-secondary education. That's the way out of poverty situations, and it's fair. So that would be my focus for sure.
Great.
And the COVID, it's always changing, and the COVID's a good example of that.
Mm-hmm. So I'm also wondering how you plan to address the housing shortage, particularly the acute housing crisis in Victoria that disproportionately impacts our students.
As the economist in me recognizes, it's supply. You know, we have the demand and we're just not meeting it with adequate supply. So we have to target that and really get down to solving supply issues. And that's going to be, you know, finding out why there are barriers to building rental housing and getting rid of the barriers and putting out incentives for developers to build rental housing. We've done that before. You know, that was a focus of policy in the 1970s, and let's get back to it. But it's a supply side. So that would be my focus.
Okay, thanks. So 4 years after Bill 23, which is the Sexual Violence and Misconduct Policy Act, we continue to hear from students that many post-secondary institutions haven't yet implemented effective sexual violence and misconduct policies. I'm wondering how will you create and regulate minimum standards or streamlined funding for post-secondary institutions to effectively implement these policies?
Well, to be honest with you, I hadn't read the statute until I saw your question, and I did read the statute. I noticed that it was brought in by Andrew Wilkinson as the Minister of Advanced Education at that time, shortly before the change in government. And I also couldn't help but notice there's no teeth in the statute. So it would seem to me that's the minister's responsibility to get out there and do, you know, follow up, make sure the institutions are doing what it says they must do in the statute and enabling them to get it done. So my guess is UBC has probably got it done and got it done right, and a smaller university that's more challenged with resources and that kind of policy department probably hasn't. So that's got to be enabled and facilitated by government, and also give them the tools, like give them the policy that you want. I've seen it before in organizations where they're told you got to get this, and then they're scrambling to figure out what this is, when it would be so easy to just hand it, say this is what we want, go to it and get it put in place, and then whatever supports the various institutions, they'll have obviously different needs, but get it going. And that seems to me to be the minister's responsibility, and it should be done.
Okay.
And can.
Yeah, thank you so much for your thoughtful answers today, Roxanne. And is there anything else that you'd like to add here at the end about how students can reach out to you or even get involved with your campaign?
Oh, absolutely. Check me out on Facebook. I didn't have Facebook before this campaign, and now I'm all over it. I have a website that has my contact information. We do have some UVic students who are volunteering, and we'll always take more.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Emily.